Hugh Jackman, America's sweetheart.
Has nothing to do with the plot.
Yeah.
Why are you trying to make this gargoyle still kind of hot?
Yeah, I'm gonna finger that.
Welcome to the first episode of Big Name Bad Movie, where we pick a star who is either really famous, at one time was an A-lister, had a big smash hit blockbuster, and then we just overanalyze and overdiscuss the bad movies that they've made, whether that be their career drying up and them just doing something for a cash grab, or it be a hidden gem bad movie that didn't get enough appreciation and love. Is that a good description?
Yeah, that's great. That's
Okay.
great. I was trying to like come up with like a tight little thing, but I think that's fine for like.
You're a tight little thing.
Thank you, thank you. You know what? We don't have to have a tight little thing. That's
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe no tight little thing. All right, tell the people what we're talking about today.
All right. Well, first off, my name is Cameron.
Mm.
My co-host here is Joseph Smith. Not really. I don't know if you want.
We got to cut the Mormon jokes.
Yeah.
I have Mormon family.
Sorry. My bad.
No, but like Van Helsing.
Van Helsing, starring Hugh Jackman. Huge jacked man.
Huge jacked man.
Bless me, Father, for I have sinned.
Van Helsing! You murderer!
Why can't you tell the world I work for you?
Because we do not exist.
My life, my job, my curse is to vanquish evil.
This has been the top of our minds for a minute now because we saw Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
And
it's
then
top of everybody's mind. Hugh Jackman, America's sweetheart.
He's a top in everyone's mind.
He's a top in every. He's a
Is he a power bottom or is he a top?
No, Ryan Reynolds is a power bottom. Is in that relationship.
But we all agree Hugh Jackman's definitely gay.
Yeah.
100%.
That's why he got divorced.
Which isn't why we picked him to talk about for the movie, but it just kind of,
he's in the zeitgeist, Deadpool Wolverine is a massive movie, so we thought what better actor to kick this podcast off with than Hugh Jackman, Australian American sweetheart of the world.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman, okay, so like I have a soft spot for, we're not going to go on a Marvel tangent, but if we're going to give context for where Hugh Jackman's career was before,
I mean, you have to. You can't.
Van Helsing.
You can't divorce Hugh Jackman's career from Marvel movies.
No, I mean, you think about like his big breakout, because he'd done some stage, he'd done some smaller movies, but his big breakout
was Oklahoma before X-Men, or
I think so, because I think that was late '90s.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. Someone will fact check us.
Sure.
But I feel like
sound off in the comments.
Hey, chat.
Chat, is this real?
Chad, is this real? He had done X-Men, which I'm like an X-Men apologist.
Wait, have we said what movie we're talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about Van Helsing.
Van Helsing. So he had done X-Men 1 and 2. X-Men X2, which is like arguably one of the best X-Men movies.
It's arguably one of the best superhero movies.
Sure,
That scene with Nightcrawler in the president's office.
Sick as hell.
One of the best.
I rewatched all the X-Men movies after I saw Deadpool, Wolverine, because I was just feeling it,
I as much as people love like the Marvel movies, and then there are people who equally like hate on them, like these are trash. I have the strongest feelings about the X-Men movies, and I've loved Hugh Jackman since I was a kid. Like to me, I think the X-Men movies are criminally underrated in the scope of
sure.
Okay,
no. I agree.
The first three. Criminally, I even think the third one's criminally underrated.
Okay, I mean, it
has everything that the Marvel movies don't have.
I will say X-Men Last Stand is like, it has more heart than like Ant-Man and Wasp. You know what I mean?
Or Doctor Strange.
It's more memorable than most X-Men movies, despite what you may think about the plot, how they handled the Phoenix, how they handled freaking Cyclops. We're in full-on X-Men tangent right now.
We're getting into an X-Men tangent.
Fine.
But I think the important thing here is that before X-Men was well-received, it was a huge success.
Yes.
X2 is well-received. It's a huge success, which brings us to 2004. Steven Sommers is the director and the writer of Van Helsing.
Sommers,
I don't know.
Yeah. Sure.
either way, Stevie. He done a couple big ass movies.
He did Mummy 1 and Mummy 2, Return of Mummy. I don't know what the
Mummy Strikes
the actual
Back
title is. He has a shit ton of producing credits.
Oh yeah.
He did. Help me out.
Oh, I
He
gotta
did
pull up
all the Scorpion.
Scorpion King
related movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's got which that was post Mummy, but
Mhm.
he's done a ton of
Right.
Oh, we got a foot touch there. He's done a ton of like really, really big movies. And I think the interesting thing about him is at this point in his career, Stevie is kind of a Hollywood darling. He's done The Jungle Book in the 90s, which was a live action.
I didn't know that existed, but
Directing, he'd done Catch Me If You Can in 89, not the Spielberg one, obviously.
Okay.
Terror Eyes, which looks like a low budget sort of thing. Adventures of Huck Finn, which was a pretty successful Disney
Was
movie.
that like the porno version of Huck Finn, where they like, I don't know where I'm going with this. Never mind. Keep going. Never mind.
A swing and a miss.
Yeah, never mind.
Deep Rising in 98. And then, of course, it all changes with The Mummy in 99. Where do you
Mhm.
stand on The Mummy?
I have not seen it in forever. I love Brendan Fraser. Glad he's having a bit of a renaissance right now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, yeah, I liked it. I frankly could not tell you much about it, but I remember really liking it.
I love The Mummy.
Yeah.
I love
the ride.
The ride
At
is
Universal.
amazing, too.
That ride is sick as hell.
Yeah. They're replacing it with a whale ride. They just feed you the entire
Oh.
time. They wanted to keep
I was like, what do you? Wait, is it like a water world
They
thing?
make you
But
go to
no.
all the concession stands. They wanted to keep it with
There's a
Brendan Fraser.
QR code with that one image from the whale of his face, like it looks really sad.
Yeah, the ride is sick, even as dated as it is.
Yeah,
The Mummy's great. I love that movie, and
Yes.
and I think this is important for the Van Helsing discussion too. The Mummy is like stylish, and
Yeah.
so many blockbusters like
Yeah.
that I love. They have no style, and it's of course like Marvel movies come to mind because it's like they lack a lot of style, but also like even better and I like the Marvel movies. I'm not trying to trash on those, but even like I think about like the Dark Knight trilogy. They're well executed movies, but they're not stylish. You know what I mean? Like everything's very clinical. Gotham City basically is just New York City.
I mean,
There's not like a tone.
you're saying that the Dark Knight trilogy is not stylish?
I don't think so.
All right,
And I guess
that's a
the
hot
way-
take.
It is a hot take. I love those movies. They're incredibly well written, incredibly well acted. But think about like the Batman, like the newer one, the Robert Pattinson Batman,
Yeah.
right? It oozes style. Like there's
That's-
something about it. It doesn't feel like a Christopher Nolan movie. It feels like
I think it's probably a more solid overall Batman movie for sure.
Yeah.
I think like the atmosphere is great. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to shit on the Dark Knight movies. I think they're all pretty good. You know?
They're amazing.
They're
They're
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I think Mummy nails that. It has like the 1920s like Lovecraftian vibe mixed with a little bit of Indiana Jones, all the costume design,
Yeah.
the production design,
Yeah.
the blocking, like everything reinforces this really specific tone that is just cool, and it's like something you don't see in a whole lot of blockbusters.
yeah.
Um
And I think Van Helsing tries to keep that tone. It has like this early 2000s hamming it up type tone,
yeah,
and it just does not work at all.
it doesn't work at all.
for this like gritty steampunk type beat. I feel like from like 2000 to like I don't know 2013, 2014, there was this like Hollywood just kept attempting to make these like British or like just European mythology movies. Like the year before, like, this came out the year after Underworld. There's
Yeah.
like 15 million of those movies. I've never seen any of them.
No,
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen came out the year before.
I'm thinking about The Crow.
I've never seen The Crow.
Dang,
I know. I know the new one just came out and everybody
tons
hates
of
it.
style.
But
The original
right,
Crow.
I know everybody
tons of
loves
style.
the original one. But so there's that. There's like Hansel and Gretel, but gritty. Snow White, but gritty. That sort of thing. I feel like
Everything
it's
but
never taken off. Like all of the movies that I'm saying are just like
Blade is that way.
yeah,
Very gritty.
True.
You know what I mean?
True. There's definitely some elements of Blade in this movie for sure. But yeah, it never works, and I feel like they finally realized that. But this was like right smack dab in the era where they're just like, we're gonna make this happen. Have you seen League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
I have not.
Okay, they do a similar thing to like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, where they like in this movie, we'll get into it, but they like make them super buff, like when he turns into Mr. Hyde.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's like
a little inspiration there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like he he just turns into the Hulk, okay, but he's
He
like
just
hairy.
what if he just gets hot?
Yeah, well, I mean that's what I assume.
Kind of what happens is he just gets hot.
Yeah, just beefy boy.
I think Van Helsing's interesting. We should kind of start explaining the plot.
Yes.
I'm assuming
Yes.
most people watching this or listening to this probably have not seen Van Helsing.
Which
It
is
was-
fine.
I think it's important to understand the context of where Stevie
Stevie
Baby was before Van Helsing. Pre-2004, he's got The Mummy and The Mummy Returns, I think was what it was called. Not as good of a movie, I don't think. Not
M2
yeah, too.
fully loaded.
Not as good. And then he comes out with Van Helsing. And so far he's been making really profitable movies. And Hugh
Mhm.
Jackman is obviously a bankable star fresh off of a couple of
Absolutely.
X-Men movies.
Yeah.
So you think this is a perfect kind of perfect situation, but let's get to the script written by Stevie.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he wrote and directed this movie, to be
Yeah.
clear.
and the premise is pretty simple. The premise is that the Bram Stoker Dracula character of Professor Van Helsing, who played kind of a small role in the book, now let's give him his own lore. Let's give him
Yeah.
his own story. And so we're going
Make
to
him hot.
Let's make him hot, have
Keep
long hair.
like a pilgrim hat, but make him hot.
Hire Hugh Jackman to play him. He's like
Yeah.
a sexy ghost monster hunter, basically.
Yeah, he's looking great. I will say,
Hugh
for-
Jackman always looks great.
Yeah. I mean,
The man
if you
is
haven't seen the
jacked.
movie, we'll get into it. But I'll just say there is a shirtless scene in this movie.
There is.
I'm definitely getting ahead of myself. But
it's a satisfying
I just
shirtless scene,
want to
too.
say, like, in terms of like his physique, I would say he's like somewhere in between like the first X-Men movie and like where we see him in like the Wolverine many years later.
This is where your
you know?
fitness bro side is totally coming out.
Definitely,
You're
definitely.
like,
Well,
let's talk
I
the
mean,
physique.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're talking
You're
about
such
a guy.
gym rat, dude.
Well, he's one of those people who constantly denies the roid allegations, which it's like, come on, man.
He's not beating them.
Come on, man. He's like, I just ate, steamed chicken and broccoli every day. It's like, yeah, man. Totally.
With some tren.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like with a
Exactly.
sprinkling of tren.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I just wanted to say he looks great in
He
this
looks
movie.
fantastic.
He's pretty big. He's a pretty big guy in this
he
one.
is, and it's kind of funny because the movie starts us in 1887.
Okay, that was my first thing. I was confused because the first scene is like in black and white, which first of all, I want to say the way they did the Universal Pictures logo transition
Yes.
into the torch, sick as hell. I like
and
that.
and I will say this is a Universal movie. Universal's a studio for this movie.
Yep.
And this movie is just from the trailer alone, you can tell this movie is definitely an homage to and a love letter, or trying to be an homage and a love letter to the Universal monster movies
Yeah,
of the 30s and 40s. The original Frankenstein and Mummy movies and all of that fun stuff.
definitely.
And it's clear coming off of the Mummy that Stevie probably has a affinity for those type of monster
sure.
movies.
for sure.
And a respect for that. So you got to give him props for doing something that seems like it's, a subject matter that he really enjoys. He
Yeah,
had done a lot of kids movies, and now he's getting more serious. He's getting gritty.
he's able to do a passion project.
Passion
maybe,
project,
maybe.
yes.
He
An
dedicated this
expensive-
movie. It feels rude to say, but he dedicated this movie to his dad at the end of the credits. He's like, he's like, for my dad, which is
and now
very
we-
sweet.
And now we're going to trash that.
Yeah.
Now we're just going to
Yeah.
shit on it. The movie drops us in 1887 in Transylvania. Dr. Victor Frankenstein, aided by his assistant Igor and Count Dracula, create
I think
a
you mean
monster.
Nicolas Cage in Long Legs.
That's the first part. We got to stop there. I'm just reading the Wikipedia
I know.
plot
It's
summary.
Fine. It's fine.
And already
If you let me in now.
there's a few things that strike me as odd right off the rip with this movie. First of all, Igor literally does just look like Nick Cage's character in Long Legs.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like the kind of hunchback guy that we're used to
No.
seeing in
Yeah.
the Frankenstein lore. he looks like
He's just like he's standing upright. He just has a fucked up face.
they
That's
just
it.
fucked up his face, and we're like, that's cool. Like that's Igor.
Yeah, I mean,
He-
at least he's not like a CGI monster.
They just made him a burn victim.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like-
yeah.
How is this not like this
Yeah.
isn't good? He
Yeah.
just looks like a guy who had a traumatic incident, and it's bad. And then the first thing that struck me turning on this movie, because I kind of went into this movie. How did you go into this movie? Did you want to like
Look,
it?
I mean, for the sake of this podcast, for the sake of like content, I was like, I'm hoping this movie is, of course, entertainingly bad. That's what I want probably for any
name,
episode of this podcast.
Bad movie.
Yeah. You know the show. We've been out here. Come on.
We've been out here rooting against these movies.
Yeah. But that being said, the opening bit, I was like, okay, maybe this is going to be like actually good. I don't think that is what it is. I think it's not that great. What about you?
I went into this movie because I love The Mummy, and I love stylish movies. Like I love a movie
Yeah.
that's like, and I saw the trailer and I was like, okay, there's a chance this movie has like a really cool tone.
Yeah.
And I love the Universal monster movies. I'm like, this would be kind of sick if this movie ruled. And
Yeah.
then the first thing that I noticed was they cast the lead singer of Creed as Dracula, basically.
Yes.
He immediately
Yes.
looks, I mean, it's not actually Scott Stapp from Creed,
Right.
but
I was like thinking for a second, like, wait, I don't think it's actually.
it's not actually him, but it's so close that like if you squint your eyes a little bit, you're like, he will start singing with arms wide open at any moment. Dracula immediately
I
looks,
mean-
dude, he looks like he works at Buckle. Like,
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it's like, come
Hugh
on.
Jackman probably did too, just in his real life at that point, though. He's walking around with the bedazzled jeans that are distressed on the
100%.
back.
100%.
You know. That being said, I love the actor who plays Dracula in this. I think he is. I don't know. He's hamming it up, man. I love that. It doesn't work for the
committed to the
movie at
bit.
all, but like I love. He's just. It's kind of like Palpatine in Star Wars. It's just like a guy who loves being evil. I love
And
that.
that's like undeniably fun to have like
Yeah.
a pure like movie villain
Yes.
kind of guy.
Very, very
Um,
like emblematic of the time that it came out. Just like these like villains that love being evil.
And the actor is Richard Roxburgh, who played Dracula.
Okay.
And props to him for really staying committed to the bit. And we'll probably get into casting a little bit more, but
Sure.
right off the bat, I think the style, if we're talking costume design, makeup, everything like that, this Dracula looks like an early 2000s Dracula.
yeah.
There's nothing timeless about him.
Yep.
His performance is definitely not, it's very well done. It's definitely not the
Mhm.
performance that I think this movie tonally
Well,
would need.
Yeah. I mean, we'll probably get into it, but this is a pre-Twilight era where you could make like a comical, over the top vampire, and people
Yeah.
wouldn't really bat an eye.
Oh, that was good.
So,
And let's just say this performance doesn't suck.
yeah. We'll see.
Dracula, I'm going to keep going with the plot.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dracula kills Frankenstein when he refuses to go along with the vampire's designs for the creature as Igor, revealed to be under Dracula's pay,
Yep.
which this is where I want to stop again. So to set the scene, we're in Frankenstein's laboratory with Dracula, and they're creating a Frankenstein's monster, and the line Igor, Frankenstein's assistant, kind of backstabs Frankenstein,
Right.
and it's revealed, okay, he actually works for Dracula. Whoa.
What?
And the
Whoa.
line, this is the first line of dialogue that stood out to me, is Igor looks at Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And Frankenstein's like, why did you betray me? And then Igor just goes, he pays me. It's like, yo,
Sick.
that's some good
It's
writing.
a hard line.
He pays me. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Immediately this feels weird.
Exactly. That is the thing that just like really betrays the tone of this movie. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Like
The dialogue is rough.
it's like it's supposed to be this corny thing, but that just feels like a very flippant thing to say.
Yeah.
There's a couple lines like that throughout the movie that I'm sure we'll get into. But go ahead, keep
The
going with the plot.
Yeah, angry mob was cool. I thought
Yeah.
there was an angry mob approaches, and they're like trying to
Classic.
chase out Frankenstein. So the angry mob storms Dr. Frankenstein's castle, and Frankenstein's monster. I think I'm trying to remember. There's a lot about this movie that's very forgettable.
Yeah.
Frankenstein's monster runs away.
Yeah,
right?
he runs away with the body of his father, I guess, Dr. Frankenstein.
Yep.
And he falls down a well or something. And then suddenly we're in color, and Hugh Jackman.
And it's important to note that we just described this entire flashback that the movie starts with. I don't know how much of this flashback was actually necessary to anything that happens after this.
Dude, that was the first thing I was going to say. There's like 3 intros. It's kind of like watching the Lord of the Rings extended edition, where it's like, this is fun, but like, this is a world that I care about. This is not like a 20-minute. We have like this flashback that explains like Dracula's thing. Then we have this other section that explains Van Helsing. And then there's a third one that I already forgot, but there's a third one. There's a third like little intro.
It's like a Dracula flashback or something. No, I don't remember. It's so forgettable.
I don't know.
Here's the other thing. This movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes
long. As hell.
This movie is
Too
long as hell.
Too long.
And so what ends up happening is like, we're watching this movie and you're kind of waiting for it to start for a long time.
I shouldn't have done that. She's gonna hop up on me now.
That's fine, dude. She makes the podcast better. For those that are listening, the dog has just entered the frame and is very interested in the conversation. So we get done with this flashback, and now we get to meet our star, Van Helsing, played by Hugh Jackman, and we're in Vatican City headquarters. And there is a lot going on here.
Yeah.
So first of all, this is where I'm like, okay, I might enjoy this movie because the style, the setting, being at Vatican City, like another movie I'm an apologist for that I think is kind of awesome because it's really fun, but is like objectively kind of a bad movie, is The Da Vinci Code, starring Tom Hanks with a mullet.
I don't think I've ever seen it, actually.
It's not worth
crazy.
Watching, but I enjoy it because it's kind of like we're traveling the world, we're solving these, we're trying to find the clues. I also enjoy National Treasure.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy some kind of bad movies.
We don't have to get into it, but I think the reason I didn't see Da Vinci Code is because when it came out, apparently there was like people in the church that were calling it blasphemic for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
It's because Jesus has like a wife in it or something.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Sorry, but
Jesus in the movie, Jesus has a wife. Or something.
Yeah, that's bad.
We're at Vatican City and we meet a bishop or an official within the Catholic Church.
I mean, it reads like a police chief talking to a rogue, doesn't play by the book detective, but it's like a confession.
They're reeling me back in.
Yeah,
it's a confessional, and Hugh Jackman sits down to get some things off of his chest. And
wait, we're just gonna skip over the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, that's like the intro to Van Helsing.
Okay, let's rewind.
You already
a little bit.
forget about it?
Sorry. We meet. Yeah, you're right. So after the flashback where we see Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, Dr. Frankenstein, that has nothing to do with the plot. We jump to Notre Dame.
Right. So this is what I was going to say that I was confused about. What is the time jump there? Do they explain it? Because it's like black and white and then it's in color. So it's like, okay, so this is supposed to be
a passage of time.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't know.
Okay.
We know it starts in 1887.
Right.
I don't know that the movie ever specifies. Maybe it's on the screen, but if so, it doesn't have anything to do with the plot.
Okay.
It's completely pointless.
Cool.
And we're in Notre Dame, and we meet Van Helsing, and he's immediately kind of badass. He's got a cool... Hugh Jackman's character has just like this sick kind of pilgrim hat.
Yeah.
He's got a duster, like a leather duster.
Dude, his costume is sick.
His costume is
sick. I definitely
sick.
would have wanted to go as him for Halloween, regardless of how bad the movie is.
When you were like a little kid?
Yeah.
Or like now?
Yeah, when I was a little kid, for sure. That's what I meant.
He's hunting down... We meet Van Helsing when he's hunting down a monster, and come to find out it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And so
Mr. Hyde specifically. Dr. Jekyll is just a regular guy.
Yes.
Mr. Hyde is a big CGI monster played by Robbie Coltrane, R.I.P.
Rest in peace to Robbie Coltrane. What a legend. I will say that performance as Mr. Hyde was pretty sick.
Yeah.
The CGI does not hold up.
Oh, dude, it's so bad.
It's bad. It's not as bad as the stuff in The Mummy, but it's pretty bad.
Yeah. It's not Dwayne Johnson and Scorpion King level bad, but it's like...
It's still bad.
I'm trying to think like what movies, like Lord of the Rings had already come out at this point.
Yeah.
And that's like infinitely better CGI.
Jurassic Park had come out almost a decade earlier, and it's infinitely better CGI. And that's the crazy thing. Like and we're on the cusp of like only a couple years after this, we're hitting the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
Oh, was it? I thought this was after, but
No, this is 2004. I think the first Pirates movie was like 2006, I want to say, or something like that. I'll fact check that.
It's definitely earlier than 2006.
All right, let's bet on it.
I thought isn't it 99 first Pirates movie?
Oh my gosh, bro, you're right. Pirates of the Caribbean 1 was 2003. So the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie had already come out and had infinitely better CGI.
Yes.
Like,
iconic
CGI.
Yeah.
And this just looks like straight trash.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the first Harry Potter movie where they like weren't sure how big the budget was gonna need to be, and like you see the kids on their brooms in the Quidditch scene, and it just looks like a fucking video game.
It looks awful. It looks like a PlayStation 2.
That's like this, but like there are many like cruxes of the plot of this movie that are hinged on like just CGI, disgusting, just trash.
It looks
schlock.
awful.
Yeah, it's really bad.
So when we meet Mr. Hyde, again, cool performance.
Yep.
And cool blocking to the scene. It's a cool action scene. So Van Helsing, he's got a crossbow, which is pretty sick, but then he also whips out 2 little buzzsaws, which for the 1800s is slightly weird. But it doesn't matter because it's sick. So he gets locked into a combat fight scene with Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
Eventually chasing him to a rooftop where he ends up
he chops his arm off at some point, and then like he has this grappling hook. He's kind of like a James Bond type guy, and like in that he has like all these different gadgets.
They're setting him up as a guy who we know a few things about him. He's mysterious. He's involved with like, monster hunting, and he uses a lot of cool, like you said, gadgets. And so all this setup, I'm like, okay, this could be a really cool character. Kind of a Blade-esque sort of, almost like superhero character. I'm like, this could be kind of cool. And he whips out like 3 different gadgets in that one. He's got a crossbow, he's got the little mini buzzsaws he's slicing off limbs with, and he's got a grappling hook. Those are all really sick.
Yep.
And then for the rest of the movie, he basically uses no gadgets. He's just firing off the crossbow. Think about it. When does he ever whip out another cool gadget?
Right. Yeah, he pretty much just only uses the crossbow for the rest of he gets a new crossbow, we should say. It's like a Gatling gun crossbow.
It's a machine gun crossbow. Again, sick.
Yeah, and he has he dual wields some pistols with, of course, silver bullets.
Yeah, pistols with silver bullets. Yeah, all that stuff is cool, but this is probably, I think, maybe the best combat in the whole movie.
Yeah.
And it happens in the first 10 minutes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
The rest of the 2 hour and 15-minute runtime, I don't think we ever reached this height of good combat again.
Yeah.
For an action movie, that's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm. Good shit.
Mr. Hyde falls off the roof, and then we pan down, and oops, surprise, it's now Dr. Jekyll.
Right.
And so then...
Wait, is that why the priest is mad at him?
I think the priest is... I don't remember. It's so forgettable. The dialogue is such a slog.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
We got to move on.
He gets to the Vatican. The priest takes him underground and reveals, like, hey, they're part of a secret order of knights who protect the world and maintain peace. And Van Helsing is one of the agents of this secret order. So kind of reinforcing this whole James Bond mysterious narrative, right?
Yeah.
And he's down there, and they're showing off all these sick gadgets and cool stuff that the church secretly has. And this is where we get our big call to action for our hero, which is incredibly confusing.
I'm like, okay, so there's a monster. Okay, cool. All right.
They're like, we got to kill Dracula. The reason you have to kill Dracula, the priest says, we're going to send you off to go kill Dracula. And the reason being that Kate Beckinsale's character is her family has been trying to kill Dracula for 9 generations.
Yeah.
All of them have failed to kill Dracula. And they made a deal with God that if they were able to kill Dracula, they would all go to heaven. Mm-hmm. And right now, all of her ancestors are in purgatory until Dracula dies.
Right.
So, pause.
Well, it plays more into it. You'd think that it's like, look, not to say this would never happen today, and I think that's fine. Like
this movie would never happen today?
like that whole thing of like making a deal with being like so overt in like the Christian imagery, because it's like not done well.
It's not done well.
Like
at
it's
all.
so that like I don't think that would happen today.
No,
and I'm not saying that in a way like the woke, bro. You'd never see
Yeah,
this
no,
today. I'm
it's
just
just-
like, I don't think you would see that today.
It's just not an appealing plot line
yeah,
anymore.
Yeah.
It's almost too fantastical for a modern audience to be
Yeah.
like, they made a deal with God, they're stuck in purgatory.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. This whole call to action makes no sense. Well, and there's a couple flaws with it right off the bat. The first flaw is that we're setting up Kate Beckinsale's character kind of like a damsel in distress,
Yeah.
right? Like she's off the bat described as basically incompetent and from a family of incompetent people. Like they're kind of
That's
losers.
accurate.
If for 900 years,
Yeah.
all of the entire family, all the cousins, aunts, uncles, everybody is trying to kill this one guy, and they're failing miserably.
Oh.
We've already met. There's a little construction in the background. You have to excuse that. They're trying to kill Dracula, and Van Helsing, who they also establish kind of the worst part about his character now, which never really kind of it. There is a payoff at the end, which we'll get to, but it doesn't make any sense. The setup for Van Helsing's character is that he was dropped off at the church's doorsteps as a baby,
Yeah.
or as a young man or something. He found himself at the church's doorsteps and has no memory of his past.
Right.
Which by its very nature means that he's kind of just a boring character.
He's also very inconsistent. We'll get into it as we go over the plot. We got to keep it moving, but his actions do not make him like a compelling protagonist. There's like not
No.
a ton of characterization to him.
Nothing.
Yeah.
He just kind of is. And you're it's like my least favorite thing about movies is like when you have a character and it's like, okay, why am I supposed to enjoy watching this character's story? It's like, well, just because they're the main guy.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not fun.
Yeah.
And I think you can do a character with a mysterious backstory really well. Like James Bond is a great example of this.
Yeah.
Because his actions tell you everything you need to know about him. It's like, it's important that you don't know his history and his past because his actions are all consistent. So you get to see the kind of person that he is without having to have this whole backstory.
Yeah.
Van Helsing's not that way.
Yeah, you can't do like a 007 guy with the tone of the Mummy. It doesn't work because a lot of what you love about the original Mummy are the characters.
Yeah, and they all have
know?
distinct personalities that are very consistent and very enjoyable to watch.
Yes.
After he gets his call to action, so he needs to go kill Dracula, or the descendants of this person that we don't care about or know anything about yet. Her family is gonna, and her family members we've never interacted with.
Right. Oh, that's the third intro. Is her and her brother.
Yes,
That's like the third little expository.
The werewolf trap.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the third intro of the movie, which is like really
Kate
bad.
Beckinsale's character, the Dracula hunter, is with her brother. They're trying to trap a werewolf, and
In broad daylight, the CGI looks ass. Like
It's
the
bad.
the Mr. Hyde, it's like it's bad. You can tell it's bad,
The
but
werewolf
it's
is
like at least
bad.
in the dark. But this is just like
broad daylight.
barely any color grading. We're just like showing this shit. It looks awful.
Van Helsing gets now his quirky sidekick,
True.
Friar-
Before that, sorry. Yeah.
Friar Carl.
Friar Carl. Who's he played by?
He is played.
It's Faramir from Lord of the Rings, but I don't know
What's his
the
name?
guy's name.
His
Something
name
Wenham.
is David Wenham.
David Wenham. There you
Great
go.
actor, incredible performance in Lord of the Rings, and I
Yeah.
would say he gave his all to this performance too.
Sure.
He's
He's
just
too
working-
hot though for the friar.
He's too hot to be a nerdy friar
Yeah.
for sure. He's too good looking of a guy, and also he might be the worst written character because
yeah.
he is the comedic
Yeah.
relief role in this movie and is not funny at all.
Yeah.
Like all of the funny bits of dialogue kind of get relegated to the villains.
And I do think that's a little bit of miscasting. Like he's a good actor, you know. He hasn't been in that much, but or that much that I've seen at least. But
Me neither.
yeah, no, he's miscast, I think. And obviously the writing. Like there's that one scene which again we'll get into, but there's another werewolf scene where he's like, "Why does it smell like wet dog in here?" And then right after that, he says, "You'll need silver bullets." It's like, okay, so like you knew there was a werewolf.
He's a poorly written
Yeah,
character.
yeah,
He's bad.
it's not good.
And they give him a cool Justin
He's like
Bieber
the
haircut.
Q though of this
Yeah,
to make the like 007 parallel.
Yeah, this movie is very 007. It's kind of, that's the whole setup, right? Is
Yeah.
that it's 007 monster fighting, right?
yeah,
And yeah, Friar Carl is supposed to be the kind of the quirky weapons inventor. He's the guy
Yes.
who creates a machine gun crossbow. So he's set up to kind of be this genius
mm-hmm.
who yet, talking about inconsistencies with characters, he's set up to be this genius who's constantly doing dumb shit.
Right.
Here's how I think you nail this kind of dynamic between a sidekick and a main character. where it enforces both of their characters' traits and also gives you a really funny moment. There's a great scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where Indiana Jones is trying to bluff the Nazis to saying that, because they're trying to track down his assistant Brody, his sidekick, basically, who's a.
Is this like at the beginning of?
This is kind of
Indiana?
halfway through the film.
Okay. Maybe I don't. Go ahead though.
It's a great moment. Basically, Indy's there, that he's being interrogated, and Indy starts bluffing by saying, like, you'll never catch Brody. Like, he speaks 10 different languages. He can blend into any surrounding. You know, he can fake his identity. He can do whatever. And you immediately smash cut to Brody aimlessly walking the streets of a Middle Eastern town covered in chicken feathers and going, does anybody speak English? And it's so funny because it's such a good laugh, because you can tell it reinforces that Indiana Jones is inherently a bullshitter who's a good bluffer.
Yeah.
And his sidekick, while smart, is very out of place in this world. And it's so funny. It's a small moment and it reinforces both of their characters.
Yeah.
We never get a moment even kind of like that with Carl.
Yeah. It's just like it's like they're introduced to each other circumstantially, and you would think a good movie, like you said, would like build on that relationship, but it's just kind of like they're put together. Van Helsing doesn't really like him, and all of a sudden they're just like, okay, they like each other, I guess.
And there's no reason for them to like each other.
No.
They're constantly fucking each other over, basically, by making stupid mistakes.
Yeah.
So then we realize, like, oh snap, Kate Beckinsale's character Anna, her brother, you know, they're hunting monsters together and they're trying to find Dracula. He's been bitten by a werewolf. He's a werewolf now too.
Well, we think he's dead.
We think he's dead at first, yeah.
Which, I mean, you can tell, like, you know, it's like, okay, he's obviously not dead because he falls off a cliff. Classic.
You never see his dead body.
Yeah. Classic. The scene where he first turns into a werewolf is incredible. That guy, I don't know that actor at all, but, you know, he like has like this like.
He has a great performance in that moment, though.
I mean, it's hilarious, though.
It's
like,
poorly directed, but he's really going all out with this transformation.
Yeah.
But he's, for some reason, like floating up the wall. You remember that?
Right.
It's like, wait, he's transforming into a werewolf, so now he levitates when that happens?
And also, when they transform into werewolves, it's not like the hair grows out of their skin. It's just like their skin comes off.
I like that detail, though.
Really?
I thought that was cool.
It's disgusting looking. It's
disgusting.
a choice. It's a choice.
It's a ballsy choice. It's like, that's something, it's a cool iteration of the monster formula you haven't seen before. It's like their skin falls off.
Yeah.
And then when they go back to human form, their wolf skin falls off. They have to like tear at their flesh. It's pretty, I thought that was cool.
Sure. Yeah, and you get like all
but it
these
looks
like different,
horrible.
like deformity looking things during the transformation. It
pretty
is.
nasty.
Yeah.
It's bad. So now Anna and her brother, Velkin, are she realizes he's a werewolf. Van Helsing pops in to like kill the werewolf, and he's gonna like kill her. And she's like, no, save my brother.
Right.
And Van Helsing's trying to convince her that no, we probably shouldn't save your brother. He's a deadly werewolf. He's gonna go kill a bunch of people.
Well, can we talk about the fact that he like strangles Anna when she tries to stop him from killing her brother? He literally like puts her up against the wall and chokes her. It's like, you're stopping me from killing this werewolf. It's like, Jesus Christ, bro. Like,
and it really nails home that Van Helsing is not an interesting character, but he's also kind of not even a likable character.
Right. And they never talk about, okay, I'll just say spoilers. Van Helsing ends up getting bitten by a werewolf later in the movie. And so at that point, they're like, oh, we need to find a cure. Or whatever. And it's like, you never even mentioned that a cure was possible for her brother. You were just like, kill him. It's like, Jesus, bro. Like,
until it was convenient for the plot, there was no existence of a cure. Yeah.
But the reason that I bring up him strangling Kate Beckinsale is they have no chemistry whatsoever, in my opinion.
None.
I think like, and maybe it's the writing, maybe it's like Hugh Jackman wasn't as experienced of an actor as he is now.
I don't think so, because if you think about X-Men 1 and 2, his chemistry with Jean Grey is off the charts.
True. That's
he's
so true.
So good. And he's also he had a stage career, and he's also in some kind of like romantic Australian movies. Like he was a romantic lead for some movies. I feel like it's
No, you're right. You're right.
Just them.
Yeah.
And it's really bad
Bryan
writing.
Singer is a better director than Stephen Sommers.
And that's saying something. because we know Bryan Singer.
Just great guy.
He's just
actually.
all around great guy.
What, did something happen?
Watching Kate Beckinsale and Hugh Jackman try to work with this dialogue and these moments, like Kate Beckinsale, like I think about Serendipity. It's like a rom-com she was in, I feel like, with John Cusack, and she's so good at being like so charming.
Yeah.
She's so good at like being on screen and you're like, I just want to like talk to her. She's so good at carrying scenes like that. And in this movie, she has the charisma of a wet paper towel. It's so
Maybe
bad.
it's the accent that takes you out of it a little bit, but I would say it's more so just the shitty writing.
It's
also, what
bad.
accent is Hugh Jackman doing in this movie?
He's kind of doing like an American.
It starts off like, I don't know, like French and then British, and then he just gives up and
throws in a
starts
little
doing
bit
Wolverine.
of like Wolverine Jersey guy
Yeah,
towards the end. He kind of
yeah.
he submits to the fact that he's just going to do his Wolverine voice.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah, no.
And Kate Beckinsale was not. Well, so this is where we start encountering some real problems with her character. So we've set her up almost as this damsel in distress who needs Hugh Jackman's help, right? But then we're also trying to establish that she's a badass monster hunter. But again, she's from a lineage of shitty monster hunters.
Right.
So now it's like she's just stacking up to be a more incompetent character. And that's the problem I see with all of the like protagonists in this like ensemble movie is that there's nothing that any of them are really good at consistently. Like Kate Beckinsale's character is supposed to be this like pretty incompetent, you know, she's driven by her emotions, but then somehow when it comes to killing monsters later in the movie, she's like cold and able to like separate emotion from, you know, the mission at hand. But for the longest time, she's really just set up as this emotional kind of damsel in distress. So I don't buy her later in the movie as this like certified badass at all.
Yeah.
There's no reason for her character to change because we don't see any growth.
She gets the shit beat out of her as well.
All
Like,
the time.
Consistently. Like, there's plenty of moments in this movie where it's like, they would be dead. Like, I mean, and that's fine in like a better movie, but in this, it was just like, maybe it's like
executed.
the sound effects or something, but there's things where she just gets thrown the fuck around and it's like, oh my God.
It's brutal.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's brutal. So then it says, during the fray, Dracula confronts, so Van Helsing and Anna pursue Velkin to Frankenstein's castle. So they're now chasing down the brother who's a werewolf to Frankenstein's castle. They stumble upon Dracula's plan to duplicate Frankenstein's experiments to give life to thousands of his undead children using Velkin as a conduit.
So they walk into, I guess for some reason, werewolf blood can like help vampires create life for some, right? Is that right?
Yeah, and so we reveal it's something like that. It's a really weird, like wonky plot thing where they're like, oh, great, we've got a vampire now.
Yeah.
Or sorry, a werewolf now.
And like, you know, I'll comp to like maybe I wasn't paying attention during that. Maybe I zoned out. Maybe I was horrified by the weird fucking vampire baby egg sacs.
Let's break that down a little bit.
Okay.
Describe what we see when we hit Frankenstein's castle.
So when they
and
walk,
Dracula's there.
Right. So Van Helsing and Anna walk into the castle and there's just like what seems like miles and miles of these egg sacs that are like slimy,
bulbous.
They kind of look
undulating.
like the egg sacs from Prometheus, but they're like hanging.
Yeah.
And they're like super slimy. And Van Helsing is like, I'm gonna finger that.
He's like,
he's I'm not gonna do it. I can't do it.
No, literally, it's so bad. It looks cool from a production design standpoint.
Sure. Yeah.
It looks cool, but it makes no sense. Dracula is we've set him up as this kind of like maniacal evil villain guy, and we come to see that he has 3 brides.
He's in a quadruple.
He is a poly gentleman.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's a polycule.
He's in a polycule.
Yeah.
And we like that he's open-minded. We like that he's he's a progressive individual.
Right.
You know, there's different forms of romance for every relationship dynamic.
Was there some like grooming involved because he's like 600 years old?
And they're a lot younger?
Probably.
It's a little problematic in ways.
Yeah. Problematic age gap. That's his biggest crime.
With problematic age gap. The harvesting babies in his tower is one thing, but There's
Yeah.
a problematic age gap there.
Right.
And so he has these 3 brides, and they're just like kind of like they might be the most like early 2000s hot chick dressed characters in this whole movie.
Yeah.
Where it's clear that Stevie was just dressing these actresses just to kind of look like 2000s hot. They look like they could be backup singers for TLC.
Yeah, it's like they look like they're cosplaying as Jasmine from Aladdin.
All
it's
of
like,
them.
but you're in Transylvania and it's
With
cold
a-
as hell.
A
Like
weird Middle Eastern influence. And it's like,
Yes.
okay, maybe they're trying to look Romanian, but it does not work
No,
at all.
no.
They're wearing like the most obviously low cut tops, which is just such a funny like choice for like. Also, they're constantly on Dracula's arm, just like
Yep.
ah, ha, ha, ha,
Yep.
like fawning over him.
As groupies.
There is groupies basically.
I will say though, it was pretty early on in the movie, but the upside down scene where they're like walking up, that's a real set, and he was like in a harness actually walking up.
That's impressive.
I think that's sick as hell. That's
That
awesome.
is sick as hell.
That's awesome.
The
So-
transformation, the Brides of Dracula and Dracula, they all transform into like a bat form, like a gargoyle-esque sort
Yeah,
of bat form.
it's not like your classic vampire turns into like an actual bat.
He turns
it's-
into a beast.
Yeah, he turns into a gargoyle from the Disney Channel show Gargoyles.
What's the worst aspect of all of that is when the brides transform. We were talking about this a little bit off camera. When the brides transform, it's how would you describe it?
Oh man,
They kind of try to keep them hot a little bit.
yeah, they have boobs, but like they're like CGI, like below the standard of 2004 CGI boobs,
and it's like,
so weird
It
looking.
almost looks like they created breasty gargoyles and then deep faked
Yes.
the actresses.
Yes, the
face
heads are like real, maybe, I don't know,
on a
I don't know.
CG body, and
Yeah.
it does not work.
Yeah,
and so
it
there's
looks
this
terrible.
uncanny valley effect where it's like they're uncomfortable to look at, but not because the character design is really cool, just because the execution is so poor.
Yeah.
that you're watching it,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
why are you trying to make this gargoyle still kind of hot?
Yeah,
And it doesn't work
because
at all.
it's 2004. All right,
And
we
also,
gotta
let's
have
just say,
hot gargoyles.
There's some good performances in this movie, or like some actors you can tell are really trying their best.
Yeah.
These brides, by and large, the brides of
Yeah.
Dracula the performances are
And
are
they were
absolute
not
bullshit.
in many noteworthy things after this, I will
It
say.
makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
And so now we are
Wait. From that first scene though, with the not gargoyles, the vampires, where he kills one of them, where Van Helsing kills one of them. We have to talk about the fact that there's a part where one of them drops Anna on Hugh Jackman, and her downstairs lands right on his face, and he goes, "Boo?" Do you remember that?
yes.
They set it up. It's like, okay, so they're the love interest. That's how this is gonna go.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
She's accidentally putting her butt cheeks in his face.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
and he goes,
"Hey,
"Boo?"
like Tim Allen is playing
Yeah.
Van Helsing as played by
when
Tim
he
Allen.
looks when he looks in the mirror and sees his Santa Claus beard growing, that's the equivalent of what Hugh Jackman does.
Whoa. It's like
Bazinga.
It's like, how Catholic are you, dude?
Yeah.
Like, have you never been in contact with a woman?
Ugh.
So they stumble upon the undulating orbs of all of Dracula's children, and the plot's revealed that Dracula is trying and Hugh Jackman fingers it, and then it's revealed that Dracula is trying to I guess fertilize these undead babies.
Mhm. But they
And-
all hatch early,
They hatch early, and so now they're little mini gargoyles that
They
kind of fly into the town.
terrorize the town.
Terrorize the town.
But after a few minutes, they all explode, and that's because they pull werewolf guy off the experiment, the electric chair. They
Yep.
pull him off of that, right?
Yep. They pull him off the electric chair and they all escape. It says at Anna's castle, so they go to Anna's castle now, her fortress.
Mm-hmm.
Carl explains, the friar guy, Carl explains that Dracula is the son of Valerius the Elder. When he was killed in 1462 by the left hand of God, Dracula made a pact with the devil and lived again.
Mm.
Valerius was told to kill Dracula and gain salvation for his entire family. Unable to kill his son, he imprisoned him in an icy fortress. A fragment which the cardinal gave Van Helsing back in Vatican City opens a path to Dracula's castle.
Which we don't find that out until much later in the movie, but Yeah, he has like the missing piece of this door that happens to be in her castle.
And this is where, again, we're reinforcing that Kate Beckinsale's character, Anna, and her brother are from a line of absolute idiots.
Right.
Who can't do
the
anything.
door to Dracula's castle is in their castle.
It's a portal that leads straight to him.
They couldn't get into it because they were missing like 2 words off of the corner of the door that you have to like say.
I also love the detail that they set up in the movie. They go, yeah, the key to finding Dracula's door, it has to be on this tapestry that's hanging on the wall. Our dad was always staring at it. We didn't know why. And it's revealed, oh my gosh, he wasn't trying to read it.
Yeah.
He was trying to go through it. And the dad just never, knowing that their whole family's curse is to like exist in purgatory eternally until Dracula's dead, he just never told his kids who are, he's assuming probably are going to take over the mantle of Dracula hunting. He just conveniently never told them that the door to Dracula's castle was in their house.
Couldn't do it. The plot needed him to not tell them.
The plot absolutely
It needed to be over 2 hours, this movie.
It's so long.
Yeah.
This is the point at which I started to kind of tune out of the movie a little bit. I'm watching, but I'm not really watching. It's
because like when they enter the castle, it feels like this big final moment, even though it's the first time they meet Dracula. But at that point, we're like an hour in. I'm like, what are we doing here?
More than an hour in.
Yeah.
And like this is supposed to be the climax of the movie, and it goes on for a long, long time.
Yeah.
They find the monster, who reveals that Dracula possesses a cure for lycanthropy because only a werewolf can kill him. So Dracula's big weakness is that a werewolf can kill him.
Right.
Van Helsing, fighting the curse of sends Anna and Carl to retrieve the cure, killing Igor in the process. Van Helsing attempts to free the monster, but is struck by lightning, bringing Dracula's children to life. So,
wait, is that at the end of the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So when you say the monster, you mean Frankenstein's monster, because we find out he's alive.
And he's kind of Frankenstein's monster's alive, and he comes in as kind of a shoehorned. He
looks cool.
He looks awesome.
I like the costume. I think that looks sick. It's a very unique take.
I love that they made him kind of a like chunkier Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
Like he looks intimidating, and that's the thing with Frankenstein. Oftentimes when he looks skinny and like you could throw him, like push him, and he'd fall over.
Yeah, he's got like the cyborg coils on his head and stuff. That's
character
cool.
design. The monster design on Frankenstein's monster was sick.
Yeah, it's not CGI.
No,
which is great.
It's very well executed, and also I'll say the setting of the castles, like the actual castle design, and specifically the laboratory room where they're trying to reanimate, is pretty awesome.
I think most of the set design is pretty solid in the movie.
It's really cool.
It's really just the CGI that makes
it's everything that's happening on
the
the
visuals
sets.
just not work.
Everything on the sets is pretty ass.
Obviously, but I'm just saying from like a visual standpoint, the CGI is just so like the final battle. Like I said, Van Helsing turns into a werewolf. Super cool, man. The final battle is this awful looking CGI fight between Gargoyle Dracula and werewolf Van Helsing, and it just looks absolutely disgusting. You're totally distracted by it. It's worse than like the Transformers movies where like the final battle is like the CGI thing where you can't tell what's going on. I don't know.
This is like you can tell too much what's going on.
Yes.
Every detail is shown. It's poorly lit, like digitally and
maybe
physically.
they thought it looked really good for the time. I don't know. I don't know how they could, but
I don't. Yeah, we were young, but I still think even in the theater as a kid, I probably would have been like, oh,
yeah,
not for
yeah.
me. They find the cure, and the cure for being a werewolf is in a giant red syringe, and so I'll let you describe the climax of this film.
So like I said, Dracula and Van Helsing are duking it out. They're trying to get the cure to Van Helsing so he can kill Dracula and then get cured of his werewolfness. That's a 2-for-1 deal or whatever.
Yeah.
Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So they're trying to get it. They're crossing this bridge. Anna is like swinging on these like electrical lines,
like Tarzan. Honestly, I think Stevie was doing a little callback to his Jungle Book days here, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it was great.
He was having her
that was
swing.
Definitely what he was thinking about.
I don't know where those ropes came from. It's like
so when they have Frankenstein hooked up to the electric chair to like power the Dracula's babies.
Yeah.
Those are like going to all the different buildings or like
Gotcha.
the different like steeples or whatever
I
of the
kinda missed that.
castle.
Yeah.
So they're connected. So the when the power lines get cut, which like wouldn't she get electrocuted? Whatever, it's fine. So she catches the. Long story short, I'm skipping over a lot of stuff, but
It's worth
she catches
skipping
the cure. She lands on the other side of the castle, whatever. But one of Dracula's polycule is chasing her.
One of the sister
And
wives.
then one of the weirdest lines in the movie is when she like grabs this stake and kills one of the polycule wives. And she's like, you should just stop talking about it. I should have had it queued up, but she's like, you should just stop talking about it and kill somebody if you're going to do it. It's like a really long one-liner. I don't know.
It's kind of like a 3-liner.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like this could have been a shorter line of dialogue.
Yeah.
Just brush up the script a little bit.
Right. Or just say nothing. Just kill her and just be like, shut up.
Yeah,
That would have been better. But anyway, so she goes in. They've been duking it out or whatever. Van Helsing finally kills him just by like unceremoniously slitting his throat. There's not really like a big moment. He's just,
Yeah.
I mean, if the fight goes on for entirely too long, don't get me wrong.
It's just the period, the punctuation on the fight is really lackluster.
right.
Especially when we've already seen him kill Mr. Hyde by throwing him off of the Notre Dame roof. That's why the Cardinal, I just remember the Cardinal was mad at him because he broke the window.
Oh,
He was like, you broke the window at Notre
you
Dame.
don't play by the rules.
You don't play
That's
by
what
the
he said.
rules.
Yeah. So
We've completely lost at this point in the story. By the time Van Helsing finally cuts Dracula's throat, we've completely lost touch with the tone of James Bond.
yeah.
Now we're in full-blown kung fu movie mixed with monsters. It's a totally different tone. There's no outsmarting that really
Mhm.
happens. There's no like clever trap. There's
Yeah.
there's nothing to indicate
Just, like,
that
two
Van
action
Helsing.
figures
He
pushed
literally
together.
felt like Stevie whipped out 2 action figures and
Yeah.
just started mashing them.
The big reveal is that Van Helsing's first name is Gabriel, like the angel Gabriel.
You can't make this up.
So
He's-
he is the left hand of God that killed Dracula originally. For some reason, he doesn't remember it. I don't. Did they explain that?
No,
He just has amnesia conveniently.
he is
Okay.
he is a sentient divine being
who's also a guy.
who's also a dude and
Yeah.
just doesn't remember it.
Right. So he's the angel Gabriel. He killed Dracula originally. And yeah, I mean that's
Hot take. I don't hate the Angel Gabriel twist because the
Really?
religious themes were so prevalent in the beginning of the movie.
True.
When he goes to meet the cardinal. Here's
True.
the problem with it,
and
to
it's
me.
very tied to the church. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's very tied to the church, and like there's a lot of like they're handing him crucifixes to fight off the monsters, and there's a lot of cool lore there. That I think honestly the lore of this movie could be pretty sick if it was more well executed.
Yeah.
The issue is that if we don't realize our hero is this divine being, we don't have any reason for him to grapple throughout the movie with his divinity,
Yep.
with his role within the cosmos, with his own flaws being in a mortal form. If all you had to do is move that reveal up to kind of the lull in that halfway
The first
point,
time they go into the castle would have been way better.
exactly, and
Yeah.
have there to be the character development of Van Helsing realizing like, wait, I have this kind of divine mantle. I can't be the lone wolf anymore. Like if I have to embody this greater being, if I have to embody this like divine entity, I have to change my ways. I have to really fight for good. And then you get like a cool hero moment. But instead, no, it's just a little like fun fact at the end.
Yeah, he
thrown in
like
there.
realizes, we shouldn't just indiscriminately kill all these monsters for I guess because he meets Frankenstein and
And
thinks
they're
he's a cool.
friends.
Yeah, he thinks he's a cool guy. Not all of them are bad. Yeah, it's very weird. So yeah, that is revealed, and then he kills Dracula, and
Then we get to
Anna
see-
comes in with the cure. She goes to like heal him or whatever, or give him the antidote. And he jumps on her. We don't see him for a second. He turns around. He's got the antidote in him, but she's laying on the ground dead. He kills her.
No
He
emotional last moment.
Yeah,
nothing.
she's like, eyes wide open.
She's just dead.
No blood on her, because we forgot to say this is PG-13. That is another detriment of this movie.
Oh yeah,
This is
they can't really go hard.
This is pre-Deadpool, where studios realized they could make R-rated movies that made money. Yeah.
The PG-13 rating definitely negatively affects this movie.
Absolutely.
And you can tell they're trying to hit a weird demographic with this, because they're not going as like adult as like The Crow or Blade or something that's like distinctly adult.
Yeah.
But they're also not, it's definitely not a kid's movie. Like, you have 2 kids yourself. I don't think you would ever show them this.
Definitely not.
Not just because of the quality, but the content as well. It's like pretty gross at times.
Yeah.
There's a lot of body horror elements that are really nasty.
A lot of sexual innuendos.
Innuendos.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wrote down a line just to kind of encapsulate. I hope we did a good job with that description. I hope people kind of get a feel for the movie.
Frankly, you don't need to worry about it. If you don't understand, neither do we. It's cool. Like, it's fine.
It is. I feel like the thing that's hard to encapsulate in a plot description is how bad the dialogue is in this movie.
Yeah.
So I think I wrote down my favorite one-liner from Van Helsing just to describe not only how comically bad it is, but also how confusing this dialogue is, how inconsistent it is. Early on in the film, Van Helsing says, and I quote, "Vampires, gargoyles, they're all the same. Best when cooked well."
Yeah.
Which is confusing for a couple of reasons. One, we're establishing that he kind of indiscriminately hates monsters.
Right. Got that.
That we already know that at this point. So the line is kind of pointless immediately. We've seen this time and time again. He kills them.
Yep.
It's after we've seen him kill them and not care about it. But also saying they're best when cooked well implies that he also eats them.
Right.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
All you had to say is the best monster is a dead monster, or
right.
Vampires, gargoyles.
That makes sense.
I can't stand them.
At the end of the day, this is our protagonist. Like, he has to, at a certain point, be compelling in some way.
Best when cooked well makes no sense.
Yeah. So we see her mangled body, and then the next scene, they're like putting her on a fire.
Talking about Anna.
Yeah, Anna. Sorry,
Kate Beckinsale's character.
Anna dies. In the next scene, they're doing like a funeral for her or whatever. It's him and the friar, and he looks up in the sky. And keep in mind, Anna and her family for 600 years have been trapped.
9 generations.
Have been trapped in purgatory. He looks up in the sky and he sees like the fucking or the Teletubbies baby.
Yep.
In the sky, but it's Kate Beckinsale, and she's like, "It's okay, I'm with." She doesn't say anything, but the sense you get is like,
the insinuation.
It's okay, I'm with my family, and he smiles at the sky, and he's like, "Good."
It's such a weird note to end on.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
Yeah,
because one, it doesn't have to be said, but there's another thing here that I hate. Obviously, a perfectly written movie, Die Hard, perfectly written movie.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about that movie is that they set up an incompetent character in the cop that John McClane is talking to the entire time he's in the building, right? And the great thing about the ending of Die Hard is John McClane gets to be the hero, right? He throws Hans Gruber off the roof, and then the cop at the very end, when there's one more henchman left, climbs out of the rubble, and the cop who's been timid, he's afraid to ever use his gun again, boom, the shot's fired. The whole audience thinks it's got to be John McClane. He's our hero. And we turn, and the policeman is just standing there holding his gun. He saved the day. They both got to have their hero moments.
Mm-hmm.
The whole setup with that character was, hey, he's a guy who's his big flaw is that he's afraid to step in when the moment calls for it.
Yeah.
You set up all of Anna, Kate Beckinsale's character, as her big flaw is that her family are kind of incompetent at killing monsters. They've not done a good job. And at the end of the movie, I really don't think she was very heroic. She ran through with the syringe, but she didn't kill a monster. She basically was sidekick.
She's not even
Van
the one.
Helsing.
They should have done the Van Helsing character as kind of a Mad Max guy who's like just in this world, but like the things are happening around him. He's not really the main character in that
He's not the
story.
one that needs the arc necessarily.
She should have been which I guess like they made her brother a werewolf, whatever. She should have been the one to be the werewolf. They should have like had her kill the vampire, so it's like, oh, I'm avenging my family, and then she dies because they're not able to like give her the cure, or like
And she
the
makes the
vampire
noble-
still like scratches her or something.
And
I
also-
don't know.
Also, you miss the whole like, it's an obvious trope, but it works so well. Like the whole thing with like a zombie movie or a vampire or a werewolf thing is you
Mhm.
get the whole heroic moment of like, hey, I don't want to hurt you, so you kill me, right?
Right.
Give her that moment. Give
Yeah.
her something
Give
where
her-
she makes a heroic choice
Yes. Instead of having Van Helsing be the werewolf and
and
just
basically just accidentally kill her.
yeah. Oh God.
She dies an accidental death after
The
not
movie ends
save-
like 2 minutes later. It's
And
crazy.
it's crazy for a 2-hour and 15-minute movie for us to have all of this fluff, all of this filler, and then the
Just-
character death at the end is like, okay,
Yep.
give it 25 seconds of screen time and call it a day.
Yep. He sees her in the sky in heaven, presumably with Jesus, and then they ride off. Him and Carl ride off into the sunset.
Two guys that we don't have any reason to believe like each other.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I keep saying it's pretty bad because
Mhm.
that's like the only way. I mean, I know the whole premise of this podcast is we're picking a big star and then kind of dissecting one of their bad movies,
Yeah.
but this one I really wanted to like so
Right.
much.
Because movies that are received well at the time, or movies that are not received well at the time, maybe they develop like a cult classic status.
yeah,
You know, Blade Runner, for instance.
Blade Runner's amazing. I think about
did
like,
not do well in the box office. Maybe that is what this could have been. It is not that.
it is not a Blade Runner. The Rotten Tomatoes score is sitting at 24%. At the end of this cast, we're gonna
The critic score,
the critic score, but the
Yeah.
audience score is a lot higher. It's more mixed, but it's around
It's
50 something, right?
57%.
As of right now, Van Helsing is sitting. Clearly, it resonated. with a
Both
certain-
rotten still. Both of those
technically still
you
rotten.
know,
Yeah,
which not that we like go based off of Rotten Tomatoes scores necessarily for whether or not we're gonna enjoy a movie or whatever,
you have
but
to
like
form your own
it's just a
opinion.
good way to gauge what the public
Cultural-
perception.
Yeah, the
is.
cultural perception. I think it's safe to say that critics did not like this movie.
Yep.
Most of the time, but audiences were fairly mixed. What do you think resonated with? Like, what do you think the appeal was for people with this movie? It made a lot of money.
Well, not just for the purpose of this podcast, but I would say genuinely, Hugh Jackman, huge star, the biggest part of
Ridiculously
the X-Men
talented.
movies before and after Van Helsing happened. Like he's still like the biggest draw, I think, for the X-Men movies. Again, I think there was like this thing around like British folklore, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Dracula, like, or European, I guess, mythology that people like maybe wanted to gravitate toward. I don't know. I mean, because it didn't flop. It had a budget of 160 million. It made a little over 300 million. Pretty good,
That's
and
a
not
good take home.
not a small budget either. That's
No,
that's
It's a big budget movie.
adjusted for inflation, it's like 260. I did the calculation. I'm not doing this off the top of my head. It's like 260.
You know, inflation numbers just locked
It's like
in.
260 million or something like that. To give you an idea, Dune 2 had a budget of 190 million. So adjusted for inflation, this movie cost more than Dune 2, arguably one of the
better
best
movies of the last decade.
Yeah. That being said, I don't know what the appeal was for this movie.
I think if I was going to sum it up, to me, the appeal was, and it's the reason I wanted to like this movie, I think the idea is really sick. Like, the execution's poor,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
idea is awesome. Like a James Bond-esque monster fighting guy where you get to see because it's fun to, like, a monster mashup is inherently pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like seeing a vampire fight a werewolf or a Frankenstein's monster fight a vampire or whatever. It's cool. It's fun. We had
Yeah.
like some more obscure. We had Dwergar, who are like an English. They're like the little minions in a layer.
I was wondering about that. I was
Yeah,
like, what,
they're-
one of those
they're
little
piece of, like,
Jawas.
they look
what?
like Jawas. They're like under the mountain dwarves who are like part of
Mm.
English folklore.
Mm,
They're kind of like dark dwarves. It's
Yeah.
like that's a cool little like Easter egg in
Yeah.
there. There's cool lore associated with this. It's just
Mhm.
the story is so bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad. What do you think? What do you think are the like main couple of things you would do to fix this movie?
like I said, make Anna the werewolf at the end. Make her do some sort of sacrificial death instead of making Van Helsing, who is like, because if you make her more the focus of the movie while still like maintaining the iconography of Van Helsing, it's like I think that works way better, and you don't have to put as much characterization into Van Helsing himself.
He can be a mysterious.
Yeah, he can be a mysterious guy. Make her the werewolf. Give it like a sacrificial death instead of this flippant,
accident.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing to me. Trim it up. Take like 45 minutes out of this fucking film.
This should be a 90-minute movie.
Yeah.
It should be a straightforward monster experience. I agree with everything you said.
Yeah. Anything else to change it?
I would do that. I think the other thing I would change is I think almost all the 40 minutes you could cut could come from the beginning of this movie.
Oh yeah.
100%.
Absolutely.
3 intros.
We do not need all of the intro exposition. I will say I would like the scene where they're in the ballroom dancing and she like gets, whatever you call it, dipped in front of the mirror. We realize that everyone in the room is a vampire.
That was a cool moment.
That was a great moment.
All of the vampire babies, all of Dracula's babies grow up.
Oh, is that what? I think those are just other vampires in the community.
Really?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
It's confusing.
I could be wrong.
But
I could be
Anna
wrong.
goes to a ball at Dracula's castle.
Well, she's captured and
She's
drugged.
and it wakes up.
That's what I was gonna say. Is
forced
like
to go to a ball.
This would be a cool scene. That's a cool shot. Were it not for the insanely rapey vibes that he's giving off.
It's super which Dracula is inherently kind of a character.
Yeah.
I mean, it violates people's bodily autonomy a lot.
Yeah.
Not only
it
by
just feels, for some
capturing
reason,
them,
it feels very over the. I don't know. Like
it
gross.
It
in
feels
this scene.
icky in a way that doesn't make the character. It doesn't enhance your already. It doesn't enhance your hatred of Dracula. It also doesn't teach you anything new about his personality. So it just feels kind of gratuitous.
Right.
Gratuitously.
Yeah. Maybe we don't say the R word so much on here.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just
we're gonna get demonetized before we even
before we even get the option to monetize.
Yeah, it's a little creepy.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's just weird. It's just a weird thing. But yeah, that mirror shot was sick.
Mm-hmm.
Where she gets dipped, she looks in the mirror and realizes, oh, you can't see a vampire in the mirror. I'm in a room full of vampires.
Exactly.
It's cool. Another thing I liked about this movie, before I get to what I would fix as well, is I think like I said, the production design, the set design is really cool. The lore is really cool, and the idea is really cool. But also, I feel like the religious iconography is like kind of awesome. Like I know you haven't seen The Crow, but the basic idea is this guy has to travel to hell to bring back his dead girlfriend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like it has this kind of religious vibe to it. It's executed much better.
Mm-hmm.
This is pretty poorly executed, but I wish we hadn't abandoned that until the very end. It feels like at the beginning of the movie we get cool religious stuff at the Vatican.
That's true. That's why it doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah. My big change overall would be with the Angel Gabriel revelation. Just make Van Helsing, keep him mysterious and don't have the revelation at the end. Or if you're gonna make him the Angel Gabriel, have it at the beginning and have him wrestle with it throughout the movie and come to grips with that part of his character.
Yeah. But in this case, it's just done in it's executed in like the most awkward way, where we just tack it on at the end during this bad CGI fight where a bunch of other crap is already going on.
Yeah. Is there anything else we want to talk about with Van Helsing?
Should we rate it? How do we want to rate?
I think we rate this. I think going forward, we look at the Rotten Tomato Critics score. It's 24%. Do we think that's fair? Do we think it's aged better? Do we think that it deserves a higher score?
I think I would rate this 3 gelatinous vampire egg sacs out of 10.
Ooh.
So 24%, that's about right, I would say.
Yeah, that's good. I think I would rate this probably at about, I'm going to say 3 machine gun crossbows out of 10.
That feels better. That feels like a better thing to rate.
I think there was enough about the idea and the concept of this movie that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
That it's like I can almost see it with rose-colored glasses now that I'm not having to actually sit down and watch it.
Yeah.
There's enough about it that I'm like, if they made a remake and like gave it another shot, I'd go see it.
They were gonna do a sequel, but
I'm sure that was not.
Yeah, just
that got
the reviews were bad, even though it obviously made money. Didn't ruin Hugh Jackman's career. I'm sure some of the movies we talk about here will have ruined actors' careers, but for this one, fairly inconsequential. I did want to read you a couple reviews, if that's okay.
Do it, please.
I mean, we've probably talked plenty, but I just want to read you a couple reviews. So this is from Empire Magazine. This is a rotten review. For all the impressive production values on show, you can't help feeling that less would be considerably more. I would agree.
Hard agree.
Yeah, I would
agree.
100% agree with that. I think less in terms of runtime, less in terms of like
Trying to shoehorn in monsters.
plot.
Less weird lines of dialogue.
Yes.
Like
Yep. You could have just put nothing there and it would have been better.
a note I made during the watching of this movie was everything this movie tried to do in terms of plot, writing, everything, The Mummy does it better.
Yep.
Everything.
And the tone works better in Mummy than
It's still fantastical. It's still a little historical. It's still blending a lot of lore and folklore. It still has monsters. Everything this movie does was a worse version of The Mummy.
All right, so a review from BET. It's Hellboy with a better pace, but a less likable, slightly less human character, which is ironic because Hellboy is not human. You see what they did there?
I like that.
All right.
I like that.
Anyway, I don't know what else we can say about it. I agree with that. I love Hellboy as well. I would agree that he is very unlike. I mean, we've hammered it home at this point. I think that he's not likable.
He's not likable, and I definitely disagree that it's a better pace than Hellboy.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Hellboy's
that's true. Yeah.
The character being less likable is 100% a fact.
Yeah.
The pacing on this movie was abysmal. It feels like when you're driving, like my wife and I rented a Tesla, like a sports model Tesla while we were out of town. And there was just this weird thing where it has this regenerative braking where you take your foot off the gas and it starts like actively braking for you. It's really obnoxious to get used to. That's what this movie felt like to me. It's like every time they're pushing on the gas a little bit, they take it off and you suddenly feel like you're braking when you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And then you get your foot back on the gas and it's way too quick.
Yeah.
It's just not enjoyable to watch. So yeah, I think that's definitely, this is a big name and that was definitely a bad movie.
And that's going to do it for the first episode of Big Name Bad Movie.
Yeah, and I think moving forward, if anyone wants to give us a suggestion for a bad movie that either they love, they think is a hidden gem, or a movie that you saw, you feel like you had your money wasted, we would love to discuss it, talk about it.
Doesn't matter if it's new, old,
yeah.
You know,
As long as it features someone who had or has gone on to have or previously had a prolific career, is a big A-list star. That's what we want to focus on. And specifically, I think we want to focus on those movies. Like we have this experience all the time where you're going through IMDb and you go, wait, they were in a movie called what?
Right.
About what?
That's the whole like reason we wanted to do this podcast is, you know, you have these actors who you love and you think are like infallible, right? And then you find out that they were in, I don't know,
a horrible cash grab movie.
Just like a straight to TV.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Lifetime movie.
I think the prime example of the kind of movie we're going for is you know Tiptoes with Gary Oldman and Matthew McConaughey.
Hell yeah, dude.
Like if you guys haven't, just go ahead and Google Tiptoes. That's the kind of movie oftentimes we're looking for. Hugh Jackman we thought was a fun one to start with because we just saw Deadpool and Wolverine. Great movie. We love.
And it's
Hugh
October.
Jackman. Yeah.
Spooky season.
Spooky season.
Kind of a nice little Halloween movie. Hamming it up.
Maybe not that nice of a Halloween movie, but it is a good hammy Halloween movie.
Yeah.
I think we should do another Halloween movie too. Another bad horror movie.
Absolutely.
Or a bad monster movie. But yeah, we appreciate everybody listening or watching and hope you subscribe on whatever platform you're using to watch or listen to this right now. Whether that be just on Spotify or YouTube, it really
leave us a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Apparently, I've heard that
I've heard people say that.
Yeah,
too.
I've heard people say that helps them. So
we're gonna keep churning these out. So we hope you stick around.